Welcome back to the unpopular opinion becoming popular. My name is Yana the Heretic, and I am going to talk about the hexagram gate 30, which is the gate of recognizing your feelings, or the gate of feelings. And its keynote is the clinging fire. And this one's filtering from February 12th to February 18th. And it is definitely our stasis in our emotions. This is the emotions of Kali really taking us to the deepest level. And that can be definitely uncomfortable for some people, especially like non-emotional people who don't typically like confrontation or don't typically like to dwell in heavy emotional rooms. And sometimes, the non-emotionals will just completely exit or leave, or sometimes they actually carry this gate or any emotional gate, and they can only really recognize how they feel versus feel comfortable with taking on other people's emotions. So there's definitely some stirring of feelings coming through here. So pick yourself up, brush yourself off, express things neutrally if possible. Say, hey, I don't have the bandwidth right now to take on these emotions or have an answer for you. Otherwise, if you're used to emotions, you like talking about your emotions, then definitely you'll see a lot of people activated in this way. So people are expressing things that normally you're like, whoa, I did not know that about you, or you're just shocked by the emotional aspects of what's flying through the ether. We did have the solar eclipse, we have Saturn in Aries, we have a lot of things coming into our field, and we're really here to measure how our emotions have imprinted on us throughout our life. So as you may suspect, this is in our solar plexus, and it is reaching out to the root center. And the clinging fire is all about desire. It's about what is fated. And these are people that are never free from their desires. Their desires will ultimately lead them into a fated path. So it's hard to let go of certain things. It's hard to focus on even maybe like yourself, because you're just so driven to achieve this desire that you're just heading towards it like a magnet. And you can desire people, you can desire careers, you can desire to make a change, you can desire a new animal in your life. There's so many different desires that are possible. And it is really wise to assess through the highs and lows, what actually sticks, because we might have some urge or pull within us to really change everything in our life. And it could be pretty chaotic and drastic and unnecessary in certain times. If you do things on a whim, there's a possibility of regretting them. So it is wise to sit through the process and really like establish, hey, yeah, like I do want to actually make this change. I think it'll make my life better, and I do really crave this life path, and why haven't I like fully gotten where I needed to go yet? And you start to make these plans and you start to, really just be like, yeah, like I'm canceling this, and I'm just going out into the world, into a new field or a new environment. So I call this the opera gate. I call this the doom metal gate, because these emotions are going to take you to the deepest place in your body, and they have the possibility of affecting you drastically, where you will think and process, your own perspective, or others' perspective, and how that applies to you, and how you actually work through these issues that you see present in your environment. I personally do have this gate, and it is very much a yearning, or, there is this aspect where it can seem extremely limitless, like your drive is so potent, and you have these dreams, and you're like, yeah, everything's possible, like I could do anything in this life. But at the same time, it can seem pretty delusional and excessive, especially when others don't have this gate. They're like, yeah, well, how are you going to financially actually do that? And the piece you can find here is that knowing the most true thing about your soul, what your soul wants to achieve, is going to still stick to you. And even if you go through many throes in life, like, you will still be able to come back to that place and start working through the things you actually really truly want in this life. I like the term jack of all emotions, because it is true. These people are searching for experience in all emotions and everything that the emotional center has to offer. They fall deeply in love. They, are extremely romantic. They have the expectation that people are always going to have this well full. The cup is always full. So you treat these people with the same energy as you always treat them. When you see a friend, you're always super excited to see them, and you're bubbling over. And that's the energy that the gate 30s are going to expect every time. And it does get really toxic in ways, because, once romance dies or things get neutral, it's really hard to, feel like it is the right path. It feels almost insulting that people don't have this like eternal fire stoked, in this romantic way. And you start to feel this kind of like imbalance, and you start to feel pain or hopelessness, because you're like, expectations are much grander than other people can actually fulfill in life. And that pain starts to dwell on you, and it starts to make you want to move, because if it does reach anger, bitterness, frustration, disappointment, loss, then you're like, yeah, I need to move on to something new that's going to be eternal. And that is really challenging, because people go through different periods of emotional turbulence in their life, and certain relationships have an imbalance for that reason. I've definitely experienced this a lot in my own lessons, where I've just been like, yeah, like the fire isn't there anymore, so I need to move forward and move on to where I feel that passion, that fire. And it could be pretty destabilizing, especially if you, like I said, move on a whim, and you are like, yeah, well, the grass is greener on this side, and I'm just going to move here, and I'm going to see what happens. It's been very liberating. It's been very potent, but there's also not as much of a foundation in the thing that I personally wanted to fulfill, because I kind of cut off that cycle prematurely to get the full lesson, or to actually establish enough of a foundation to then, maybe I changed environment, but I'm still doing the same thing. So, if you're totally ready to have a change and you feel that hope, or you feel hopeless and you really, really need that change to happen because you're not really receiving what you expect in any form, and it's causing you a lot of suffering, then it is wise to, start a new career, start a new relationship, like move to a different location, follow whatever you're driven to do, because that well is full, that reservoir is going to be, you still got a lot of oil to burn there, so yeah, every touch and embrace is such a big deal. Every hug, every kiss, every connection is very important to these people. And they are definitely destined to meet their desires. So they're definitely going to find that eventually, because it is fated. Typically, I gauge myself to match the energy of others, because I know that I'm emotionally intense for a lot of people. I have learned to not dump, the things that are going on with me on others. So that's a really important lesson. You can share your desires when you're asked, and that's really important. It won't always happen that way, and it's not always supposed to happen that way, but you definitely will receive a lot of, reflection in that state when you just say how you're feeling. It's challenging not to get swept up by another strong gust of wind, and just to stay stable in one place for me, that's for sure. And it's been really wise for me to do so, because I understand what structure is like. I understand what, building up energy and finances in one space and mastering something can actually do. Sometimes it looks like that, sometimes it doesn't, because people are meant to transition and move and spread their dreams, spread their ambition, spread their passion. So it just depends on, the after effect once you make that change. How is it actually supporting you? It's a beautiful thing when, you have the same goals and dreams as another person or a team or a community, and then you're like, yeah, aha, like this can actually be done. And once it actually is done, it might not actually hold that much gravity anymore, and then people disperse, and that's ultimately what it was meant to be there for. So desires are going to shape your week for sure. You'll have a lot more cravings, and you'll want to feel the fire of passion, whatever that actually leads you into. I've learned a lot, not to cause chaos, because I don't feel fire every day. So take it from somebody with the experience. It's hard to have really rigid expectations and not get them met. This is on the cross of contagion, so you will encounter people, who are just talking about stuff. They're just spewing out their emotions. They don't really have a container, or a lid on it whatsoever. So don't get too like frustrated with people. You know, there's like internal things that they're trying to work out within themselves and trying to process. So maybe they're not even sure about what they're talking about, but they want that reaction, that debate. So living authentically and moving forward requires things to fall away, you know, and doesn't mean you're not fulfilling what you're doing. You know, the thing that you can really see is where you have been to where you have, you know, what you've actually transformed into. You know, that's generally the type of people, like gate 30s have this ability to completely transcend their conditioning, because, you know, they're able to see, yeah, well, remember when I was like poor and living in really bad conditions, and I actually moved, and it opened up a lot of opportunities for me, and I can like give myself a lot of credit and peace and rewards for the fact that I actually broke the mold and moved on past, you know, what my parents were capable of. Gate 41 is online this entire transit, so it is the gate of contraction, decrease. So it does form the channel of recognition, a design focused on feelings. So you just start to recognize the things that have been pulling you, like strings, like puppet, you know, like you're a puppet. And you're like, okay, well, I need these strings to be cut or released, you know. And so there's a lot of potential of releasing emotions and just being like, yeah, I'm done. This is over. And I'm going to move on with more self-respect. It does add more balance to emotions, having the gate 41, and whatever's been holding you back will most likely fall away with emotional maturity, even if it is hard to accept, because you deserve joy. You know, you deserve experience that brings you joy. You will feel a primal hunger to ascend beyond your current circumstance, whether big or small. Nothing ever really quenches the thirst of the gate 30. And it does promote this restless movement. So it is important to know that you have it or not, because it'll shed a lot of light on your life. This dynamic energy will color your life with experience, depth, bravery, resonance, and resilience. So if we remain patient through the turbulence, you can move forward with determination once you're clear about what you're actually gonna do. So we are not quite out of the emotional throes. This transit that's coming up, gate 55, is another emotional gate. So definitely hold on to your bootstraps. Kali is an intense one, but it is for the better. You're finally going to burn away the things that are causing you to be paralyzed or stagnant in your life. The questions of the week. What are you yearning to experience above all else? When seeking someone to match your energy, what are you looking for in a person? How can your expression allow more of these people to come into your life? How's your aura emanating this frequency? Have you felt fate before? And do you believe in it? Do you believe in transforming fate? How have emotions imprinted into you, into your bones, into your membranes, into your blood? What taught you quickly? What lessons appear over a long period of time? So just kind of gauging, like, yeah, I have this trauma and these issues and they're not quite fully done, you know, but I hope for them to be released, you know, soon, and taking active steps to do so is very important. I will see you guys in the next transit. Thank you for listening and watching. And gate 55 is coming up soon.